That's all up and running.
Lovely, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee. Can we just remember to mute yourselves if you're not talking, to keep down the background noise. And we'll try and go through everything. And obviously, if you do have a question, if you can raise your hand, we will endeavour to make sure we can get your questions answered. So the first item on the agenda is to receive declarations under procedural rule number 8. Does anybody have any declarations?
Chairman, would you mind if I just did a quick roll call and I'll deal with declarations as we go through the roll call? Is that okay?
Yep.
Thank you. So if I go through members' names alphabetically, if you can confirm if you're here and if you have any declarations of interest. That's Councillor Bullman.
Here and none.
Councillor Catchpole.
Here and none.
Thank you. Councillor Emsall.
Here and none.
Councillor King, we've got apologies from Councillor Neeson.
Here and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Nurden.
Here and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Pritton.
Here, no declarations.
Councillor Roper.
Here and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas has apologised. Councillor, that's it, Chairman. I think we have 2 members observing, and that's Councillor Vincent and Councillor Judy Leggett.
Excellent, thank you. Right, we've had the apologies, so we'll move on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of October 2018. I obviously wasn't at that meeting, but
Nor was I.
Grant,
We're all looking at grants, I think.
yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I have gone through the minutes of that meeting. There is one spelling error on the paragraph dealing with members' ICT provision, sharing data in brackets calendars with other devices. And it's the third last sentence, which reads options for alterate. That should
Alternative.
Alternate. Yeah, alternative. Yeah, calendar arrangements. Other than that, I can confirm that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting that I attended back in October 2018. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Obviously, do we have any matters arising from that meeting? I think most things will have changed now. So does anybody have any questions regarding that meeting?
Got a couple of hands showing, Chairman. Councillor Catchpole and Councillor Nurden.
Oh, Grant, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I did send you an email earlier today just to let you know that there were a couple of things that I would like to just have an update, particularly with regards to the ICT, that we were going to be able to have a few issues sorted out, and that Mr. Peck and Mrs. Leggett were going to trial the use of the Google Calendar before it was rolled out, and just basically an update on the items that were noted. And then that's on the ICT. And then just if you wouldn't mind updating us on with regards to the technology, and that was collaborative working. We've got technology options for solutions, shared emails, calendars, etc., joint domain name, website, and all that. If you could just give us an update on that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I think most of obviously the ICT information from that 2018, when we come to having the first meeting, we will have an update on the ICT, the website, the Office 365, the joint domain name and everything. So we'll have a big update on the ICT, because I think there have been more changes than just sort of saying, well, we talked about it in 2018, where are we now? So is that going to be good enough to have that ICT be one of the first items on the agenda for the next meeting, Grant? So that catches
yes.
us up with where we are.
Yeah, no, that'll be great. It's just that I was, of course, I find it very frustrating not being able to print directly from the iPad. And that was something that they specifically said that they would have sorted out. But as I say, we still can't print. But yeah, I'm quite happy that we deal with that when we have our first.
See how things are changing. Sue?
Just a question on under number 9, apologies for absence. Is that Mr. C. Harrison? Because I couldn't see any opposition members mentioned. Is there a Mr. C. Harrison or is it David Harrison?
No, there was a
used to be.
Harrison.
Oh, there was. Okay.
Yeah, that was Chris Harrison.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just
All right.
I was unaware. And also the obvious question, why didn't or haven't the subsequent meetings gone ahead that were proposed at the end of that meeting? Trying to find the dates. It's future dates, 14th of January 2019 and 18th of March 2019.
I believe it was because the working on the collaboration that was then superseded to have these meetings when we were working on that. But obviously I wasn't on that committee at that time. So obviously they would have reviewed things with Greg when he was the chairman, and obviously they've not had those 2 meetings. And then obviously by the time we got to the April, we were then getting into the election time. So like I say, top of my head, I don't know why those 2 meetings were penciled in and then not had, but I presume it's because they were talking about, things not on the, they had things that they didn't have on the agenda. I honestly don't know, Sue. Does it? Emma, do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I wasn't, this was prior to my tenure as well, but knowing where we were as a council at that point in time, this is where we'd come out of the feasibility and we were going through the recruitment of the senior management team, and we were doing the early doors project. So my assumption is the discussion was held for those meetings, that they weren't needed at those times, but considering the length of time ago, I don't think there's any of us that could actually provide you with the answer you're looking for, Sue. But I think we now need to probably move forward with where we're trying to take the committee.
Well, sorry, I'm still
Come
unmuted.
back.
That's good. Could I come back on that, please?
Yeah.
So the next obvious question is, so why now? Why have we decided to reconvene this committee after a very long time?
Well, obviously, Dan, we know that Dan did raise a question at a council meeting quite a while ago. It has always been the ambition of Broadland councillors to keep this committee, because we felt it was a good thing to look at the things that were happening at Broadland. There has been obviously a lot of changes, and one of the things was obviously with the changes to different departments, it did seem that looking at a department and sort of saying to officers, we want to now look at how efficient you are, when we're also putting a lot of change on you, you're not quite sure who's going to be in what team, who's going to be what role. So obviously where we were talking about all the collaboration work and obviously the joint teams and everything like that it did seem to be that to then say, right, you've gone through all this change in your department, but we also want you to come to this committee and report on how we can make you more efficient, did seem to be a little bit wrong. So that's why we haven't been having these meetings, because this is all about the service we provide and the efficiency levels and how we can make our service better. But when you've got everybody in a position of, well, actually, I'm not sure what role I'm going to get next and things like that. So that I believe is, it was fundamental not to have that much pressure put on the staff when they're already in that position. We're now getting out the other side of that. Everything is getting set so people know what roles they've got and everything. And we can now obviously look at how each department works. Dan.
Thank you. I think we'll probably agree to disagree on this one, John. But I mean, I'm certainly of the feeling, given the transformations that's been taking place with the collaboration project, it is a shame that this committee was excluded from that whole process. And as I see it, one of the purposes of this committee was to look at areas of transformation and collaboration, and yet it's essentially been sidelined. But you can't change the past, and the focus of today, I suppose, is to look at the future.
Thank you. Any other questions on that field? No? Right, well, looking at obviously the moving forward, the next item is obviously the terms of reference for this committee. Now, in the papers, you have actually got the old terms of reference and the proposed terms of reference. And obviously there are some differences there. Now that obviously gives us a steer on how we want to take this committee forward. Now, does anybody have any questions on the terms of reference? Dan.
Thank you, John. I think one question to begin with is, of course, you and I think we're the only people here as councillors who were around when this committee was first set up. And originally it was a committee that was chaired by a non-cabinet member and really came about as a result to sort of take some of the work off of the overview side of overview and scrutiny, in terms to look at particularly at the service reviews and systems reviews which were ongoing at that time. And a cabinet member coming to chair it, I think, became partly by default, in that the existing chair was made a cabinet member. And I think sort of a question at the outset is whether or not this committee should be treated like one of the panels, because it predates all of the panels, and be chaired by a portfolio holder, or whether it should sit independently as it used to, and be driven by an independent chair. I think that's just, I'll put that out there as a rhetorical question, and then I've got a couple of other points to come back on.
Yeah, well, like you say, that going back, I started with was it Broadland Futures, which was the one before this. And obviously there was a need at that time to have a change. I believe when Service Improvement and Efficiency first started, it was Ian Graham, was it? Yeah, that was Ian Graham. Now, I remember then being on that committee when it first started, but for me, I would say that it would be difficult for me to work out exactly, like say at that time, I can't exactly remember why it was set up like that, why it changed from Broadland Futures to Service Improvement and Efficiency. At the time, there was the talk about the systems thinking and the need to review the departments that we had. Looking at that, moving forward with myself, although we've, like I say, we've been to a lot of different meetings, there's been a lot of talk obviously about the collaboration and everything. I think if you've got this committee, you do really need someone from the cabinet chairing it, honestly. That is something which I would say, even if I wasn't the person, if you know what I mean, I would say that would need to be. Looking at what the terms of reference we've got, to see some of it is obviously changed, because we're not just on that simple systems thinking idea anymore. We are now working on obviously the collaboration and how the differences there. And we've also got a lot what I would class as sort of bigger project coming through, the ICT projects and the website and the domain name change. There's a lot that's bigger than we've had for quite a few years. The systems thinking was done on different departments, but there's a lot of big changes coming forward. And I would like to think that I can help facilitate what work we've got, and then bring members on board with it, so that when we get to the other side, things like members IT, we've talked about it here. We've seen, like, well, Grant has raised obviously the being able to print, for instance. Now, that might be something which members do find is really important, but that might be something that officers may not think is, that may not as B, they may not think that is something, but obviously if we've brought it through this committee and we've gone through how that is going to work and how that is going to help members, then when we get to the other side, we haven't got then that concern from members that, oh, the IC, the IT isn't working for me. But, I will try and do whatever I can to make sure that we've got that input into how things are done. And there are many subjects coming up, which for me personally, I look at it and I say, well, we should have the input into it because it is going to change how things are. But does that sort of answer your question? I know you want to know. I think I'm going to be the chairman, and I don't think we're going to put it to someone outside the cabinet.
I can see where you're coming from, and again, right at the beginning, there was the Broadland Futures project in which it was Kim Davis was heading that up as the cabinet member at the time, and I think this committee grew out of a feeling that the work that was doing needed to be more formalised and under the committee structure, and essentially it was set up to, in a way, kind of scrutinise and guide the work of that cabinet member, and with the knowledge that probably other portfolios would then be included and then have to come to the committee. It's a very cross-cutting committee. I mean, to be honest, if that's what the administration want, that's what the administration want in terms of it being chaired by a cabinet member. I do though think, if we're going back to the earlier discussion, I think one of the important things is members' involvement in significant change, and I do wonder if this committee was chaired by a non-cabinet member, it might well have found more to talk about and more work to do over the last 18 months than it has. That's the reason I posed the question, not because I've got anything against you, John, or any other cabinet member at all. It's just a general principle point.
Well, with regards to obviously the work levels, there has been a lot of the work talked about at meetings that I have attended. So maybe I will say that obviously that the officers see that some duplication is, that they don't want to see work sort of duplicated. I fully understand members' feelings that, although I'd maybe seen some reports, maybe that other members wanted input into the reports before it got later down the stage of obviously going to cabinet and council. But obviously that is something which I am aware of, and that's why I think for me to have this committee start again and actually have the member input is very important. But like you say, that has been that situation where there has been a lot of change which was involving the departments. So then to have things come through, I think the departments, the officers in the departments needed to work on how the things were going to go themselves. They didn't really need our input into saying, well, are you going to do that or are you going to do that? So I don't know if maybe it was that situation where there was a lot going on that was going to be, maybe members' input was just going to make it for the officers more difficult to understand where they were going to be. And I think there was probably that feeling of a lot of change and then also the member input into it. But like I say, I knew how much was going on, but I was, aware that we hadn't had this committee. But, we're now at a point where we can say that things are more organised and we can have this committee and we can start to look at things with the extra member input to make sure moving forward we're all right.
You've got Councillor Bullman, Chairman.
For me, the interrelationship between this committee and the cabinet is crucial. Is this meant to be a sounding board for various ideas which would improve efficiency or effectiveness, or perhaps change the direction of the council prior to them being considered by the cabinet? Or is this something that's going to be driven by the cabinet? Either of those is pertinent. It just needs to be established how you envisage this working, because at the moment, for me, this whole process seems a little opaque.
I would say that where you've got something that comes out as an idea, that if you then had the member input into it, that becomes a clearer idea for when it goes to cabinet. So we've obviously got, say, for instance, the members IT, that the officers could put together a plan to say, this is how we see members IT, but that would be better if there was member input into that, and also how the actual overall, the website works and everything like that. Again, an officer can put together a website, or even a website designer can put together a website, but for councillors to say, no, this is how we want it to look, there would be that input as well. But I think by the time it would then get to cabinet, it would be at that point of saying, this is what we're going to do. That's more of, this is what we're going to do, and this is how much we need to do it. Can we have this agreed? So this is more the input into those decisions.
Okay, so who initiates this process then? Do you as the cabinet member, somebody else from the cabinet, or do the councillors initiate the process? Where does it start from?
Well, as a committee, we would set our own work programme. We would look at what I've got. I've already had some ideas that I've already put forward. We'd then also have the committee, when we talk about our work programme, talking about what we could look at moving forward. But obviously we don't want to duplicate anything that's going to go through ONS, for instance. You know, that's the point when you look at it, that quite a few members of this committee will also be on ONS, and you don't want to just be having the same reports going to the same, you know, we want different things happening. So this would be something where we can influence what is moving forward, so that when it goes to ONS, it's more about making sure that it's right then to go to cabinet, to go to council. But we've already had the input into that. Right. Any other
Chair,
questions?
can I perhaps maybe assist in relation to Councillor Ballman's question? I'm just looking at the proposed terms of reference that you've got before you, and it does, the purpose is quite clear there. I think it's about to advise cabinet on the design and delivery of corporate work streams. So your role is about advising cabinet, but I agree with what the chairman's saying. You know, we need to make sure that we set a work programme that is fit for purpose for this committee. I'm quite conscious that obviously overview and scrutiny have got a really key role to play, and we don't want to duplicate that. We've also got 4 panels that work on policy and what that looks like, and we need to make sure that they've got the air time and the space to do that. We've also then got audit committee, and they have their kind of set programme through. So we just need to make sure that, yes, we're advising cabinet through this committee in terms of key work streams, but with an eye to, I'm very conscious that we're not duplicating what it is that we're taking through, because I think we just need to make sure that we're aware of that potential crossover. I hope that helps, Chair.
So basically then, one of our key priorities needs to be to establish a work programme and agree it. That obviously will be crucial. We can then make sure it doesn't overlap with overview and scrutiny. We can also make sure that we are driving things forward, which I assume is what is required.
Yeah, to make things more efficient and you know, the way the council works. Yes.
And I think that's spot on. It's making sure that actually your work programme is complementary to you as a committee and helps you drive things forward, and then you don't have that overlay. But what I would suggest as well with the work programme is what we're looking and developing. Those that are on ONS know this, around making sure that we're clear on the objectives of what we're taking through, and we're clear on the outcomes that we're looking for, so that as members and officers we're on the same page with what it is we're trying to take through. So that's really key for the work programme for this committee.
Councillor Leggett has her hand raised.
Judy?
Thank you for letting me speak. I just want to put my penny worth in, because one of the reasons I came along tonight, because I thought I was a member of the committee before, and it seemed to be the only place where we could really comment on members' IT, for example. And I think that was a vital role. We didn't achieve too much, as you can probably realise from the minutes, but I would like to hope that going forward, your terms of reference would allow you to look at things like that, and probably also a design of the website to look at it from a member's perspective.
I am actually hoping that where we've got the website, the domain name, the Office 365, all those, and obviously members IT as well, they'll all be one of the first things we look at. Right, Sue?
Thank you, Chair. I was looking at the wording. I don't know whether we've quite got onto this yet, but the first paragraph, it says the role of the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee is to consider ideas for improving the, then it lists efficiency, quality and accountability of the public services in the district. I would like to add in there the impact on the environment, because there's nothing in there that in any of this that shows that we are considering that in all of our decisions. And also diversity / inclusivity, because there's nothing again mentioned that we are actually considering those as ways of service improvement and efficiency. So I would like to see those in the first paragraph. And my second point is under purpose.
Sorry,
The
can
list,
I just check, are you looking at the current terms of reference or the
no, proposed.
proposed? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, under the purpose, there's 4 reasons listed, and I really think they're in the wrong order. And I do think there's a much more sense to be had from them by putting number 3 first, which is to deliver the ambition of the Broadland delivery plan and drive the transformation delivery, that's number 4, with identify financial savings and consider proposals for income generation coming after that. So they're my comments.
Emma, with regards to the environmental and the equality part, we can obviously include extra things into that position, but how would that then go with the terms of reference for for instance, the environmental excellence panel, which is obviously dealing with all of that? Or is that, have I missed it slightly?
No, I think both points are really valid points to raise, because I think in terms of what we're looking at in this committee, it's about looking at it from a really broad perspective. So it's making sure that we cover everything from that really broad perspective. But it's another one of those areas where we then need to be mindful that we don't cross over into the work of the Environmental Excellence Panel. And it's just constantly kind of having that awareness in our heads. I mean, I think looking at that, you could probably make that even broader than Catchpole said. I think you could broaden that if you so wish. I think in terms of the purpose, happy to change the order if all members think that would make sense. More than happy to do that, because obviously these terms of reference will then go on to council to be formally put in the constitution. So this is your opportunity to get them where you want them to get to.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, on a sort of slightly separate point, that having identified financial savings, I don't want that as the first one, because that's not what we should be about. It should be about making our departments more efficient and more run in a more effective way for officers and for residents. So that should maybe not be considered as the first point of what we need. So yeah, I'm more than happy to switch them round and have that as the other point of the, obviously, the making money and saving money as after the point about working smartly and everything. So that's a good point.
Can I just clarify that then, Chairman, just to make sure that I've got it in the right order? So our new order would be 3, 4, 1, 2. Yep, lovely. Thank you.
That's fine. And what about the, obviously, the equality, diversity, environmental? Is there a way of wording that in there to show that we're looking at everything?
That we've got a mind and an awareness to that as we're working the way through in the committee. Of course we can. Yep, I can add that in. That's no problem. But as I say, as a committee, just be mindful that we're not clashing with work that others are doing. But no, that's no problem.
No, I think when you're talking about our improving the efficiency and quality, the fact that obviously the environmental impact of what we do is important, because that will move them forward, and obviously to make sure we are considering everybody. I just think that does seem to be that would be a good point to look at. Right, Dan. Oh, sorry. Who
Sorry,
was
Councillor
the one
Bullman
first?
had his hand up as well. Sorry.
Oh, we'll let Dan go first, then Peter.
Thank you. I was going to raise that point about the number one itself, because it made it look as though we were a star chamber, really focused on the finances. So I certainly welcome that drop into number 3. Can I suggest perhaps that itself be rephrased to reflect the old number 6 on the old terms of reference, which was to identify savings and efficiencies which contribute to the medium-term financial plan, capital and revenue, which broadens it out a little bit rather than just financial savings, that we use the E word as well, efficiencies, rather than the rather blunt term as it is at the minute. On page 12, it's the old number 6 from the previous terms of reference. I think the other thing which I would say, I certainly support what Sue said around where do we capture diversity issues, because that seems to sit outside of other committees. So I think it would be good to capture that here. I'm also interested in customer service and where that falls in terms of our committee structure, because again, in terms of how we interface with the public is absolutely vital. And I'm in the same room at the moment as Councillor Neeson in our conservatory, and I was in the same room with her this afternoon when she was having frustrations trying to get through to a particular officer, for 2 officers actually. So just in terms of that members interface with the organisation, but also more importantly than that, our interface with our customers.
I think the interesting part about this year is the fact that everybody is doing something slightly differently, and I think that is where we have got things coming up where residents would maybe used to have maybe just popped into the office, and they probably don't do that now, in the fact that we would maybe just have gone to meetings, and now we're all Zoom experts. There is this change, and obviously then moving forward, if we've got customers that residents that are customers that can find out everything they need from going to the website to save them having to make that journey, it is easier but what we've got to remember is the fact that unfortunately with councils in the past, there does seem to have been that feeling that that is more complicated to find out the information you need, and so then you have to make a phone call and speak to different people and everything. And I'd like to think that people could find out everything they need as easily as as we can. Right, Peter, and then Julie.
I would delete the word efficiency in all contexts in this paper and replace it with cost effectiveness.
Right.
We're not just about efficiency, we're about cost effectiveness. Basically, we need to be assured that what we're delivering to our customers is not excessively costly and is effective. So I would delete that word efficient and replace it with cost effective. I don't mind which order it goes in, and there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, because clearly I assume that each of those are of equal importance.
Chair, may I come in on that point? It's a really interesting point, because I'm kind of reflecting back on all my studies and all of that kind of stuff from my dim and distant past. And it always used to talk about the 3 E's, so your economy, your effectiveness, and your efficiency. And I think we've got the strain of the economy coming through with the financial aspects. But I think if we were to focus actually on reflection just on efficiency or just on effectiveness, you're not looking at it in the round. So potentially we need the 2 to complement each other. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I'm happy to get effective in there, but I don't. With obviously efficiency, I think it's one of those words that we've used quite a lot for quite a while. So
can I
assume
come
that
in, Jeff?
efficiency is a subset of cost effectiveness.
Emma,
could I just come in there?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that efficiency suggests timeliness and not just cost effectiveness.
Well,
so
I would disagree.
Right. So
it's not just the timeliness of keeping the number of hours of staff time to provide that service. It's also the timeliness of making sure that the customer, the resident, gets what it is that they wanted in the right amount of time, in a reasonable amount of time.
Which is why I think Dan's point about going and including customer responsiveness is perhaps most important.
Should that be under purpose then?
Well, it certainly should be one of our purposes. If not, we should just go home.
Well, there's nothing to stop us adding in the fact that for something for the residents, and then bringing in the cost effective, where we've got obviously identified financial savings, or we're now going to use the other one, the efficiencies with the contribute to the medium-term financial plan. There's nothing to stop.
Could I make a suggestion? Could I just make a quick suggestion? Instead of financial savings, identify something to the effect of provide cost-effective, customer-focused service delivery. How does that grab you?
Custom. Yeah, well, we can get. I think when we're looking at changing the identified financial savings to what we had before, which is identify the savings and efficiencies, the customer service thing, I think, needs to be separate. I think that, like, to say that we are definitely focusing on cost-effective ways to improve customer service, but do you want that as another purpose, or do you want that just in that first paragraph when you were just saying that doesn't matter? Right. Well, we can get cost-effective in there so that adds into the efficiency part. Is everybody happy with having cost-effective in there as well as the efficiency, to make it so that we've got the efficiency and the cost-effectiveness for the residents?
I'm
Julie.
more than happy with
And
that.
the customer service.
Yeah.
I do say I would support having an additional purpose which focuses on customer service.
Yeah, that's fine, and we can put that in. Right, Julie.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't so much about the wording of the proposed terms of reference. I was just going back to what Dan said about the customer service. And we're talking about, you know, sort of planning and developing things for the future. But the immediate issue that I think needs to be looked at is what we're doing right now, because as he alluded to earlier, I was, you know, my own personal experience here is just trying to contact officers in Broadland, and because obviously COVID's happening and they're working from home, being told that they're not available by telephone is really not helpful. You know, in these times that we're not at the beginning of the lockdown, we're hopefully out of the lockdown more or less, and okay, if the plan is that people are going to be working from home generally in future, obviously this issue around IT is going to have to be changed quite considerably, but we need to move it quickly, particularly in relation to contactable officers while they're working from home, because to say that they're available via email and then not to respond to emails on a regular basis isn't customer service or effective, or might be cost efficient because if they're not doing what we need them to do. But aside from that, that was just my comment anyway. And but you know, saying that we need to move on customer service as a priority is really important.
Debbie, do you want to come in on the communication issue?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to say, Julie, perhaps if we can pick that up outside of this meeting, and then I can take that forward for you on that particular issue.
To be fair, Julie, I had heard something similar, where obviously that was a situation where you would think that they would have got back to the person quicker with the email, but you know, that is something which these are unprecedented times, so hopefully things can be ironed out. And
I think that is understandable, and I would have understood that more, I think, you know, in April rather than now, sort of mid-July, particularly ringing our help, you know, the main office number for Broadland and being told that the person isn't available by telephone is a bit bizarre. So it's just something that I felt was quite important given the, you know, the title of this committee actually. So thank you anyway.
No worries. excellent. Hopefully Debbie will be able to give you some more information on that. Any other questions regarding the terms of reference?
Sorry, Chair, can
Debbie,
I just explain? We are in the process of rolling out soft phones. Unfortunately, the system that Broadland had prior to what we're doing now didn't allow soft phones to be there. We managed to have a workaround for 40, and that was basically a bit of a workaround, but what we're doing at the moment is rolling out soft phones, but that is a process, and obviously we have to put that on everybody's computer. So there is a program at the moment that's doing that, but it will take a couple of months to get to everybody. But we are on the point of rolling out more soft phones, so there will be more officers contactable. But I'm afraid that was a legacy from the previous system that we had before, that obviously didn't envisage in those days that we would end up having to work at home in such a quantity. So I'm sorry that was the current situation, but we are trying to move that one forward, or will be moving that one forward.
I do have telephony system on my list of things we need to bring through to see how that is going to work. And obviously, you know, with the advancement in obviously the phone system, that might mean that everything is sorted out. But obviously, until you knew that you're going to have so many people working from home, I suppose it was a situation of not knowing that. Right. Any other questions?
Chair, can I don't want to labour the point in terms of telephony, and I think Debbie's right. We need to take away that particular issue because, you know, even if staff aren't contactable on phone, there are other ways that they should be able to, and they should be responding. So we will take that specific example away, just to give you some assurance. Those key frontline services that really needed to be contactable during COVID have been. They're the ones that we prioritised. They're the ones that we got a workaround for, so that they could have soft phones from day dot. They've now been moved on to the new system that we're going to use going forward. And what we're doing in terms of the other service areas is we are doing those in that priority order. So we make sure that those that have the more customer demand have that, and then we're working with the teams to make sure that that general cover is in place regardless of whether you phone or email. And as Debbie says, we'll pick up Julie's particular issue because that's unsatisfactory.
Excellent. Any other questions regarding the terms of reference? Are you putting your hand up, Grant? Grant, there you go.
Yes, no, I did have my hand up a few times, but obviously it didn't hang in there for long enough. Stretching. No problem. Right. I was just going to comment on when we were talking about the introduction, effectively, and whether we have the duplication issue. And my thoughts about whether it was a panel, whether it was a committee, and I think because I serve on the play shaping panel, for example, and that a lot of what is discussed at those meetings eventually also goes to cabinet, and what we are doing here at this committee effectively is the same sort of thing. And some of the items that we talk about at those panel meetings do end up going to overview and scrutiny. For example, the charging for pre-application advice was an issue that was discussed at the panel, then went to the ONS, then went to cabinet, and so there is that almost like triplication of basically policies that are shaped at those panel meetings. So I'm quite happy with the idea of it being a committee, but you know, really to me it effectively is a panel. I like the ideas that were raised about changing the order of the numbering for the purpose. I just wanted to talk about the objectives, and I'm a little bit unclear about, we talk about to oversee the operation of the council's performance management framework, which I understand to be an overview and scrutiny function or role. Further up, it says to advise and review the performance of the council. And then it goes on to through review of key human resources, etc., etc. And I would have thought that to advise and review the performance of the council is effectively the performance management framework. So I think there's a little bit of a disorder in that lot. I go down to another one which I had a little bit of an issue with, where it says identify how the council can generate income. And I thought, oh, excuse me. And I take Peter's point as well about, you know, and Dan's point, because we're not here to see how we can fleece or take as much money as we possibly can. But I would have thought that if it's an objective, then we should explore opportunities for generating income. And when I see, and I would have put it a full stop there, because through developing commercial skills and knowledge to generate a greater proportion of funding, is that, you know, that's not a committee objective. It's really a management task that they are there to develop their commercial skills. It's not for members to develop commercial skills. So yeah, that was just a little few of my thoughts about the objectives.
Well, I think that the generate income is all about how you can raise, how we can have funds coming in. That means we don't have to put the additional pressure on the residents, and that would make, you know, a good efficiency if we can make extra income to sort of fill some of the gaps. And obviously, because this is the bigger picture is obviously about, you know, the RSG and everything that was dropping before. We were always considering how we do make the council cost effective. So with that, these things about the generating income, we've been talking about it for years. You know, there has been that there have been ideas put forward before where, you know, that was all about the just purely on income generation, and not like, I get what you're saying is that sounds like what you're trying to do is work out ways of charging residents for things which aren't, at the moment, aren't being charged.
Yeah, no, sorry, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I'm saying that we do need to explore opportunities, and that's why I've said that specifically. I would change it to exploring opportunities to generate income for the council, and that's where I would say I would leave it. But I wouldn't put the part which is after that, which says through developing commercial skills and knowledge to generate a greater proportion of funding. You know, because that I see is not our function, but it's the it's the management structure.
Yep. All right.
Chairman, can I ask a question? Because I think between me and Dawn, we're trying to note all of these proposed changes, and I think we're in danger of losing track of exactly where we are and what we're doing. So can I just go back on those points, Grant, that you just made there? So where we've got the one around identify how the council can generate income, etc., your proposal is, sorry, remind me, what were the words that you used?
I was just saying to explore opportunities. Yeah.
So to explore opportunities for generating income, full stop. So I need to understand if the committee think that that's a way forward. If we could do that one, then we'll go back on the other points that Grant made, because there's a few in there I think it'll be useful to understand.
I think, well, where it is developing the commercial skills, that is something the officers will do, not what this committee is looking at. We're, like Grant says, look to explore the ways that council can generate additional income without, but then the developing the commercial skills is something the officers will do to bring more of that income generation in, I think.
Chair, perhaps if I can, sorry, Chair, perhaps if I can, might just step in there. I mean, obviously, the council's now adopted a commercial strategy, and part of that was about developing officers' skills and their commercial awareness. So I think that's probably covered there. I think this committee is really to perhaps test out those ideas that come forward as to whether they've got legs or not before they go any further. So when cases and things like that, I think this is the committee that those come to for members to have their input and decide whether to carry forward or not. if that helps.
Yeah, I think so. I get what Grant's saying though, because what's saying is he doesn't think we need that developing commercial skills and generate proportional funding. Yeah, we don't need that bit. We can just elaborate more on the first part. Is that all right, Emma?
Yep, that's fine, Chairman.
Right. Any other questions, points?
Could we just go back on Grant's other couple of points, because he made some
fine.
points around, and I think between me and Dawn we may have lost where we're at on those, because you were talking about the bullet points that we've got in terms of performance management, and I just want to make sure that we're clear on what it is we're saying here. So I think Grant, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, because obviously the performance management, there used to be the Overview and Scrutiny Performance Management Subcommittee. Now that hasn't met for quite some time, has it? So, so if you're not having the performance management subcommittee, you could put some of the performance management through this committee.
Absolutely, and that's what I was particularly looking at, and I was thinking in terms of, you know, if we're going to advise and review the performance of the council, we are specifically looking at service delivery, and it's going to be just those services, those departments that specifically deliver services to the community, or even to the public, as Dan and Sue have mentioned. So that is almost like overseeing the operation of the council's performance management framework. I don't know whether that is part of the terms of reference of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Perhaps that's something that Emma can just check up on. Because if it's going to be taken out of Overview and Scrutiny and put into this committee's remit, then we may be stepping on somebody's toes, which I don't think we would like to be doing. And then also following on from that is that, you know, once we've done the review of these services, then we can then highlight specific projects and service areas for review. So it's all how you word that your objective, because you want to improve the service delivery of the council's departments.
Yeah. So we could take out that to oversee the operation of council performance management framework completely, and just update to advise and review the performance of the council, and add something in there.
I was thinking in terms of the council's performance management framework, because I don't know why you specifically say through review of key human resources measures, as if you were looking just at that aspect, but it's not just human resources measures, it's all service areas, and then where those service areas are underperforming, or then that is where you need to focus your attention, and we would want to see reports from those service areas of how they're going to improve their service delivery, because I see the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee as being looking at that. That's our specific function. We want to deliver the best services to our community in Broadland.
Right. So can you add a sentence into that paragraph to make it sound that? Or do you want to have a think about it? I am aware that obviously I think if we leave in the bit about the council's performance management framework, we will get questions from members who think that obviously they know about performance management through Overview and Scrutiny. But if we can take that line out and then add in a line into the review the performance of the council, that brings that together. Yes?
Yeah, can I? Right, I'll give it a go. Shall I give it a go and shoot me down? So I think what we're saying is take the performance management framework, take that out as a specific objective. But what we're saying is that one above, so it's a 1, 2, 3, the fourth bullet point where we say to advise and review the performance of the council, make that a broad one rather than a specific, but part of it will be focusing on those service areas and where we need to look at their performance. And I think of some much better words, but is that what we're trying to achieve? I'm seeing a few nods. So hopefully, okay. Yeah, thank you.
That's fine. Right. Anybody else got any questions or points? Excellent. Right. So we'll make those additions to the terms of reference. Emma, are we able to email them round to the members so that they can see the updated one from this meeting?
Yeah, Chairman, what I was going to suggest is me and Dawn will get our heads together and make sure that between us we've got all of this captured. We'll send you round a revised terms of reference. We'll try and do it by track changes, but if it looks messy, we'll just do this is what it was and this is a clean one. If you could all get back to me, confirm if you're happy with our interpretation of that, and then we'll need to take that through to the next council meeting to get that endorsed and put in the constitution. Yeah,
I tried to make some notes as well, and I got a bit confused myself, but Sue.
I'm sure we'll get there.
Turning the page on page 14, it says the membership of the committee will consist of 11 members of the council. Is that the same as it was before? And what does that mean for political balance? Will there be room for a member of the Labour Party?
It's exactly the same as it was. So I've made no proposed changes to the membership, and the Widdicombe will remain as is. So it's the balance that we've got at the moment. And the Labour Party could be given a seat if either the Conservatives or the Liberal Democrats wish to give them one of their seats, but the Widdicombe rules wouldn't give them a seat generally on this committee.
I haven't had any questions from them about having a seat, so we'll just leave it as it is for a while. Right. Any other questions? Right. So we will look out for the revised terms of reference. What council meeting would they be going to, Emma?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
30th of July.
Thank you. So we will need a quick turnaround on this. When will the papers go out, Dawn?
5 working days before that. 22nd.
So we will endeavour to get something turned around. I think between committee services, we've got about 10 committee meetings this week, but we will endeavour to get this to you as soon as possible, but a prompt turnaround from the committee members would be much appreciated on this one.
Excellent, thank you. Right, now we've obviously gone through the terms of reference. Is everybody happy that our start work programme, our next meeting will be all about the IT, the website, the 365, so we can get every member of this committee up to date on where we are in the process, so we know what they're doing on the website and what dates they're working to there, what they're doing on the Office 365 and what dates they're working to there. I think we can probably even add in the phone system, so we can say what is happening with the the system and what dates are we working to. I think that will give us enough to go on, and obviously the members IT, what dates things will be changing for that, and obviously that will then bring in also the domain name, obviously the website. There is work being done on the website and everything as well. So is everybody happy that that's a good piece of work to give us some update on where we are and what we need to be doing, and then we can ask the questions obviously on how that will make us more efficient.
Can I just add to that,
Yeah.
Chairman, in terms of the members' IT, obviously everything that you've just talked about is integral to both members and officers, and we'll make it very clear the benefits that both will get from the IT and the work that the team are working extremely hard on at the moment. What I'd probably like to bring to you as part of that as well is an early kind of ideas conversation with you as a committee in terms of a committee system. Because at the moment we don't have a committee system. We're one of very few councils that don't have that, and actually there's massive benefits for both officers and members in that. So I'd just like to bring, it'll be very high level, kind of what does that system bring, but I'd be quite keen to bring that to you. It'll be very early doors, very early doors, but I'd like to just start an initial conversation, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be fine. Right. Now, obviously, according to the programme of meetings, the next meeting is not going to be until October, but we will have one before October. Is everybody happy with the adding in an additional meeting? Yes, right.
Yeah.
Was there anything else, Emma? Yeah.
Just on that additional meeting, Jonathan, I know we've spoken about this outside of the meeting. I will work with Jonathan and the team. Obviously, we're coming into holiday period. They've worked exceptionally hard and they all need a bit of a break. But we will get one booked in probably, I don't know if I want to say as soon as we can, but I just need to work through the committee timetable and make sure that we've got the resources available because my team need a bit of a break as well. But we'll work that through, Jonathan, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think for the purposes of members, I think the concern about not having the meetings, not having the work done. So we're now at that point where we've got the new terms of reference. We can look at the work moving forward and obviously then have more meetings in. I'm fully aware that obviously we have gone sort of virtually a whole year without the meetings, which hasn't been suitable at all, but we'll now make our efforts to work through the work that we can actually look at. And obviously, like Judy says, the IT has been talked about in this committee for a while, and it does seem to be that there was talk about changes and then that has stopped, but now we'll envisage to start again. Does anybody else have anything straight away that they think should be on the work programme? Dan?
Just on the dates, sorry, John. In terms of slotting in an additional date in September, I'm the person on the committee who's most likely to moan about things. But I'd say I won't moan if that means to make a little bit more space, moving the October date back a little bit so that it is a bit of space. So that we get two meetings in by the end of October. You know, I'm perfectly flexible on that.
No, that's fine.
Councillor Nurden's got his hand raised.
Grant?
Yes, thanks. I don't know about it being part of the work program, but I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that we can't get our payslips digitally. I understand that it has got something to do with the network, but I worked out that it's probably costing us about £200 a month just to send out the payslips to everybody, and I think we could do with a bit of saving in that regard.
Emma?
Just on that, so in terms of the cost of sending that out, I'm not sure it's quite £200. Leah, bless her, Prince's often sends those out for us, and you will find soon some training that will be rolled out to you in terms of how to access iTrent and how to access your pay slip. So that work's already in train, and I just need to link in with the payroll lead to get that done. So that's already in hand.
See, because that is something where we talk about what the members have and the IT and everything like that. Some of these things are not going to be about getting new IT. It's about getting the training to use the IT that we're working with to work out how we do things. So yeah, these are all things that are in change, and obviously the iTrent system is new. We only just changed over to that on this year, didn't we? Was it?
Yep, 1st of April, although it feels like a lifetime ago, but yeah, it was only 1st of April.
It does feel like longer than that. Right, any other points or questions?
Yeah, and if I may just intervene there, I've got there's a general consensus to proceed with the terms of reference. Are you happy to do that with a show of hands, or did you want a more formal roll call? Or Are we
Yeah,
satisfied?
we'll agree the terms of reference. Obviously, if we have them emailed out to us when we've had these changes made, and then hopefully in the next few days we can have a clear thing. So is everybody happy? Can we just have a show of hands for that? That everybody's happy to do it like that, so
There's
that we've
no-
got the updated ones.
Yep. Everyone happy? I just want just for the record, so I can just make
Yeah.
sure that everyone's
Lovely, thank
supporting
you.
that recommendation. Thank you.
Any other questions or points to raise? Well, I'd like to say thank you for everybody. This is, for me, the actual chairing of the meetings is a new thing, although obviously we're now all getting used to Zoom. So hopefully everybody felt that went all right, and we can move forward, and we can have some, like I say, some agenda items which will give us something to work in and have our input into. Is everybody happy with that? Excellent. If there are no other questions, I will bring this first meeting to finish at 7:05. Thank you.
Thank you all.